Hello everybody, I'm Tom Matuska and I'm back with you again on our Thursday afternoon Matuska Taxidermy Supply live feed, and I'm here with my trusty assistant Mandy Swart and Brett Wingfield. And today we're going to talk about fish bodies. We're going to touch on purchasing commercial bodies as well as making patterns, which you'll want to do whether you carve your bodies or commercial bodies. And we're going to give you a little tutorial on carving bodies. Brett is a two-time world champion and kind of has this system fine-tuned to perfection. And I think I'm just going to turn it over to you, and why don't you tell them what to do.
We're going to start with a largemouth bass. It's a customer bass. In the studio, we will make a pattern, whether we're going to use a commercial body like this, probably should get a bass body instead of a crappie, or if we're going to carve our own. So we'll start with the real fish.
That's a big one to me.
That is a big one. That is a big one.
I didn't see it over there, so I was wondering how you're going to do that. Customer.
Pull a rabbit out of my hat. Pull a bass out of my hat.
There's some critical measurements that we're going to take today to get this process started. And for whether it be a carved body or the commercial mannequin, we need at least a girth. We need a measurement from the center of the eye to the base of the tail. And then we'll also need from the front of the cleathron bone to the base of the tail. And those are pretty standard no matter what commercial bodies you're going to purchase. So for this largemouth, I'm going to try and do everything upside down so you guys can see. I'll use my trusty soft tape, Mandy. Mandy would be proud of me.
Yeah.
First thing I'm going to take is just for reference is an overall length measurement. And we like to check that against our customer. We charge by the inch, so we like to take that against our customer invoice. And this fish is 22 inches. So I'm just going to put that up here in the corner. Length is 22. And then I'm going to take a measurement from the base of the tail. And the base of the tail, we're going to spread this out, and right where the meat quits in the tail, right here. So we're going to measure from there to the center of the eye, and I'm right on 16 inches. So just going to note that eye is 16. Get that out of our way. And then I'm also going to take a measurement to the front of the cleathron bone, which is, if you lift up the gill cover, it's right here. We're just going to hold this tape like that. And that's going to give me about 12 3/4 right to the front. Maybe 5/8. 12 5/8.
And these are measurements that we kind of employ in our graph in the Matuska Taxidermy Supply company. There's a little legend in there where you can look at the fish and it shows you where to measure. Different companies may have a little different measuring system, different areas.
I think we're all pretty consistent.
Right.
Yeah. And then we're also going to get the greatest girth. On this fish, it looks a little forward. This is a July caught bass. So she's a little bit spawned out here, a little thin back through here, but right up through the center section. So that's right on 16 inches. We don't want to pull it too tight. We don't want to compress this at all. We just want a nice snug measurement right there. And
now what if you have one of those,
16.
a big old pike that's maybe spawned out, or a muskie that's empty and the belly hasn't eaten in a couple days? What do you do? Do you measure what you think it should be? Or if you pull it too tight, you'll be empty, right?
Yep. I think I would write down both. I'd take both measurements, and then both a actual, what it is, and then kind of feel what kind of skin you've got to work with, and I'd take that too. So my circumference is going to be 16 inches, and we'll slide that back and forth. I'm pretty confident that's going to be the largest part of the fish, but check up here just a little further, 15 3/4. Move back here just a little ways to show you, 15 3/4. And back here we're at 15 1/8. So that 16, that's going to be our greatest girth. So those would be your critical measurements if you're going to order a body like this. And this is a 15 by 14.5, so that would be 15 inches from the front corner of the center of the eye to the base of the tail, and 14.5 inches around.
And your measurements on the bodies that you guys carved are actual measurements of the body itself. Is that correct?
Correct. When Tim and I put these together with you, we thought it would be best to go with the body, because this measurement here is off of the fish. We're going to have just a little greater thickness with the thickness of the skin scales. So
it's always safer to go down just a little bit.
Yep.
But that is the measurement of what goes in.
Yep, absolutely. So
I want to do a
now,
couple shout outs real quick, because there's some people that follow us every single week, and they're the first ones to comment and say hi. Randy Wold, hello. James Morrison, hey guys. Joe Martin, Martin's Taxidermy is here. Doug Dexter, hi. Jason Raysinger, afternoon everyone. Rick Dunlap, hi everyone, and thanks Matuskas for doing this. John Bellucci, hello nurse, LOL. Not sure what that means. John Hawkins, did you read his question yet?
I haven't read any.
Okay. I'll come back to that. Good afternoon, Jeff Spett. Just a lot of highs. Ray Lamb, this is neat. Thanks for doing this. Yes, thank you from Stephen Carrowick. So thanks, guys. We love the positive feedback. What's also really fun to see is, what are you doing right now? So like we had one guy message us and he was watching our live feed from a tree stand. And it's like, okay, I don't know if you're going to get anything by doing
Not
that.
today, right?
No, not today. But it's fun. Another guy said he's in a dentist office. Another guy said, but we love doing these for you guys and we're glad that you're tuning in and watching. So thank you.
If it wasn't for the comments and we go to the shows and I mean, person after person after person says, they just can't wait till Thursday. Jeff Speck, talk to Jeff Speck at Wisconsin. He says, I close the door, I turn off the lights at 4:30, I pop a beer and I sit down, get comfortable and watch us. I said, you need a life. You need a life. But if it wasn't for all those comments and all of this, we wouldn't do it. We wouldn't, feel like, we wouldn't feel the love.
We like it.
So thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
All right.
well, we'll get
Back to that question.
Did we have it? Yeah.
Ron Hawkins, when competing with a skin mount, how do you hide the seam?
Ooh, lots of ways.
Yeah. Yep. So to cover it real fast, you give 2 and I'll give 2.
Tom Sexton one time taught us how to actually pull scales right down the middle of the fish on one side, cut down that little isthmus with no scales, save the scales in order in a wet towel, and put it back together, either super glue it or really tiny stitches and reinsert the scales. I've done that. It works pretty darn good. A lot of times you can do a sock method on a certain fish where you cut the head off and skin him through the cleather bone and all the way out, and then you will remove the fins and take the body out, separate the carcass from the skin, pull it out that way. There's lots of different ways.
That works good. I've cut them right down the top of the back. You can of course cut them down the back, the side, or the belly. But if you go down the dorsal, down along the dorsal fin, you have a pretty minimal repair from here to here. You can sock out the tail portion of it, and minimal repairs. I would say, more importantly, do what you're most comfortable with. There's a lot of different ways to do it. You're going to find a way. You could cut them up the belly. That would work too, depending on.
People are getting really crafty. I just judged the Minnesota show, and I mean, I didn't see really a seam. One guy said, "Oh, I was afraid you're going to get me on the seam." I said, "Oh no, you did a pretty good job on your seam." And where's the seam? You know, and I'm trying to look, and I'll say, oh, you did a good job. I mean, people are getting really crafty, and remember, when you repair anything, it's texture/color. First, worry about retexturing the spot so it blends, and then color. Texture and color, you only got to worry about two things. What could go wrong?
Cool. Any other questions we want to hit real quick, or are we
I
good?
got some unless you want to keep going.
We'll keep going real
Okay.
quick, but yeah, just holler at us, any questions they have, we'll come through it. So for us, for the studio, because I know we don't have this form that matches our measurements, we're probably going to carve this rather than alter. You can alter a commercial mannequin, and you would do that just like you would do an ear head. You can cut them and turn them, or add or take them down with the racks. But for this fish, we're going to assume that we're going to use this carved body. And for a largemouth bass, typically, we'll have the mouth open. And we're going to give him just a little bit of an up curve here. You'll want to look your fish over really well to determine what the show side is. This fish here is in pretty good shape, so check both fins, they look nice. Before we make the pattern, we want to pose the fish in the exact pose that we want to see on the wall. So that's going to be very important. And I'm going to do that both in the mouth, through the throat and gullet area, and through the body. So if we wanted him very straight, we'd have him there. If we want to do just a little bit of action by bringing the tail up, we'll bring that up. Be careful not to make him look like a banana, but we'll pose him just like that. And then we're going to take some key reference points, and I'll probably ask if Kirsten can come up and we can mark these. So the first point we're going to take is right here at the very tip of the throat latch. I'm going to bring it all the way forward. Make sure you're opening the gills, and make sure you open the gills and get to the very front of it. So we're going to take that right here. We're also going to take the very front of the pectoral or the pelvic fins. We're going to mark the front and back of the vent because there's some anatomic changes that will occur there. The front of the anal fin, the back of it, the narrowest part of the tail, and then we're also going to spread the tail to the pose and position that we like. For that fish, this bass is rubbed off, so I'm going to get that to look about like we want it on the body. We're going to take a mark at the end of the tail. I'm going to have both of those marks where the meat quits, just where we took our measurement. I'm also going to take, if you look here, the scales turn on a bass on a pretty good angle, so I'm going to mark that angle. Come up here and mark that angle. Then I'm going to proceed around the top. Narrowest point, back of the dorsal, front of the soft dorsal, front of the spiny dorsal, around the top of the head. And here's another critical measurement where we're going to make the lines. Where the meat quits in the head. This is pretty important right here.
So these are just kind of key index points for you,
Yep,
correct?
yep, just reference points that we're going to come back to in a little bit. And I also like to have the center of the eye because that's a common one that we'll put on the body. So we'll mark the center of the eye right here. Okay. And those should be everything that we need around the perimeter. And now I'm just going to make a tracing. And you're going to want to pay close attention to the angle of the instrument that you mark with. You can mark with anything you want to. A Sharpie will work on occasion, but the wet fish sometimes doesn't allow for that. We're marking on butcher paper today with a grease pencil, and that works really well. I also like to have where that little dimple is, where your pectoral bones come together here, or cartilage. Mark that.
What is a grease pencil? Why do they call it that?
I think that was our trivia question for today, wasn't it? You weren't supposed to say that. This pencil is basically like a crayon. Works really well. It extends from the back here. It's $1 or $2, very inexpensive tool, and
We have refills too.
I have a half a dozen of them, and I can still hardly ever find them.
You can write on any kind of wet surface, greasy surface. They're
they were
great in the
great.
taxidermy shop.
And the butcher paper you're using. is
Butcher paper. That's a.
waxed on one side.
Yep.
We buy it by the roll. Here's
We
the roll.
sell it by the roll.
And we sell it. We buy it and sell it. Here, Kirsten.
So
This is the butcher paper. It's very handy to have in the shop. You're always packaging meat, you know, taxidermists always, you know, or hunters also. It's good for packaging meat, and we use it for pattern making. It's great stuff
Gosh,
to have
we use
around.
it. We use it for about everything. I think Mandy's tired of seeing notes written on it on a piece of butcher paper sitting on her desk.
take up some room.
That's the final
Use the Post-its.
final little bit of measurements here. A few things to observe in a fish. Typically, the leading edge of the dorsal will be the highest point on the body, and that's pretty noticeable right here. And then the leading edge of the soft dorsal here on your warm water fish. And you'll want to check your fish over really well from distortion that may have come from the freezer, and we can we can fudge some of that distortion, smooth out some of the lines and so forth. So at this point,
Rich Miller says, please cover the throat latch area and how it fits on the carved foam. I don't know where you're at right now,
Good point.
but
Yeah.
make sure you cover that for him.
we can sure do that.
Just move.
Tom, do you want to talk about that?
You go. That's your department.
Throat latch area, I'm assuming he's referring to the very point here, the very tip of the body, the underside of the tongue. The tongue would join here in reference. And there's just a small area of cartilage on the real fish that sits right against the skin, right here, right there. And we're going to carve that into our body. Our body's going to be nice and narrow right there, just like this. And we're going to really make sure that we have that marked. At the front of it, we're going to mark where these pectoral, where the cleathron bones and the pectoral muscles come together. They join right here, which is right here
Bring that up.
on the fish. So they come together, it gets very narrow there, so we want to note those anatomical changes, and we'll move through that. If I didn't answer the questions you're asking, let us know and we'll come back to it.
That's really important, and whenever you try to do a fish really accurate, having the fish laying in front of you is very, very helpful. Even if I've done a competition fish, I keep bringing it's a fresh dead fish, but it's very, very helpful. Yeah. And we've made a lot of casts. This is a big musky cast of that brisket throat latch area. This is just, we took the fish, laid him over like that, poured alginate over him, pulled it off, made a Bondo one that we just hang around the shop. If we ever think we're off in our throat latches brisket area, we can grab this and compare this to whatever we're carving. These are very helpful aids too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that might be a topic for a future live feed.
Sure.
Reference cast. Yeah.
Well, you're going to be doing it at the New Mexico casting. Isn't that your seminar?
Yeah.
That's our next show coming up, and he is judging there and also doing a casting seminar, which maybe you'll be kind and come back and do with everybody watching.
What show?
Molding and casting at the Western Regionals.
In New Mexico?
A few fish techniques.
Albuquerque?
Mm-hmm.
Albuquerque, New Mexico?
About a week and a half from now, isn't it?
Yes, it's coming up fast.
Yeah, get your competition pieces ready.
And say hi to your
Oleg from Ukraine is watching.
Really?
That might be our farthest viewer.
That's pretty impressive.
Hello from Iowa. We got snow on the ground, it's cold.
Okay, so now that we have an accurate tracing, which I'll lift it up and kind of show you what we're starting with. Kirsten, can you see that? It doesn't look like a whole bunch right now, but we're going to start connecting the dots. So basically, we're gonna come in here, continue this at the tail, continue this line through, and I couldn't draw that because the tail itself was in the way. Caudal fin if you want. I'm gonna continue that, and then I'm gonna connect these two lines here. And that's basically gonna give you this shape that you see here. We're gonna come back and we'll trim this here, this pattern, and when we do all of our commercial mannequins and our studio fish, we take all of the bones out, and we'll take them to the very, very edge. If you notice, they're built onto the mannequin like so. If you choose not to do that, and not everybody will, you can also carve those off. I'm gonna include them here on our tracing because we're gonna put it in our carved body. You can see here the shape of this soft dorsal, which we still have yet to connect the dots on, so I'll do that. Just like that.
Rich said one of his issues with the forms he purchases is they appear to be open mouth.
Many are.
Many are, and that was kind of the direction that we went with the fish on forms with Tim. We went to a parted mouth. We didn't go with a wide open mouth. Our largemouth have a little bit more open mouth, but for most of the fish on fish forms, they're fairly closed. And that's not a difficult alteration. If you wanted to take an existing mount or an existing form and alter it to a closed mouth, you can do that. I did forget to put one really critical point on here, so I'm gonna lay the fish right back on the pattern. I'm gonna put all my index points right back in place. See where the fin was? I did not mark where this cleathrum bone quits, and that might be one of the most important reference points that we have on this body. So what I'm gonna do, so you can see it, I'm just gonna roll the fish forward. I'm gonna look straight down, and I'm gonna mark it up here. Also helps to mark above and below.
And what he's doing there is actually making marks where the cleathrum bone lays in this little recession.
Yep.
And if you're somewhat new to carving and haven't done a lot of carving, Tim Perkins and Brett sculpted these fish mannequins, and they are exceptional reference for carving your own bodies. If you can look at the detail, you'll wonder, why did they do this? And when you start fitting your fish, you're gonna see something doesn't fit here. They left a recess for the collarbone up here, the little connecting cartilage that goes behind your pectoral fins. These are really, really accurate, and if you want to carve an exceptionally accurate body, follow this design, and it's very good, very helpful.
They'll give you a good start. They'll give you a really good start. Your best reference is probably this guy right here.
Sure.
But yeah, those commercial mannequins work out pretty well. We went to a lot of effort to make sure that they fit a skin, every one of them, before we put them into production. So now just a couple of more things that I want to do. Connect the dots. Right here is where the meat quit, and I'll show you here. We've got a little step that we can set that brain cavity on, and then we're also going to come in here. We're going to stay just shy of the cleathrum, the front of it, by about 1/2 inch, which would be here. And we'll bring these up here like so. This is hard to do upside down. Whose idea was this?
You're doing good.
So it's going to look something like that. Now, we want to come through and take some measurements. So as I take a few measurements, do you want to draw some on the board?
I can do that.
Put some key points. We're going to take measurements because once we take the carcass out of this fish, we're going to no longer have that reference there. So we want to put down the critical measurements: height, width, and circumference at all of those points that we wrote along that we put on our tracing. So I'm going to move real fast through them. Basically, our height measurement, just to give you a definition, is going to be the height of the profile of the fish. Okay, we're also gonna do a width measurement, which is going to be, if you're looking down on him, it's going to be this. Body width, like that. We do those. Not really, but the width. And then we're also, in those same places, we're gonna come back to our fancy Matuska Taxidermy soft tape. And we're gonna do those circumference measurements, which will be just like this. Okay?
Okay, Manny's drawing.
Oh my goodness.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Learn from my dad.
You did learn.
That's cute. All right. So the first thing we like to do, out of habit, I will take height measurements. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that everything that we're doing now, everything that I do on this pattern, is exactly what we do in school. It's a method that Tom put together 400 years ago.
Tell me what we're
and we're gonna do exactly the same thing. So I learned everything about carving a fish from Tom.
Yeah,
and,
we used to carve them on a stone.
And they were heavy. Bugger to put one of those square pegs through them. So first thing I'm gonna do is take a height. And I'm gonna do that at the smallest point of the tail. And before I even bother to write down the number, I'm gonna compare it to my drawing. So this feels pretty accurate. If I would have tipped my grease pencil out on an angle, I might have extended this by as much as a 1/4 inch on either side. And by the time I did that, you would see I'd have considerable distortion. So I'll take this caliper measurement here, check my pattern. Pattern looks great. And then I'm going to just lay out this tape to get a measurement. So our first one is gonna be 2 inches. Oh my gosh, do I have to write this upside down? I'm gonna write it right side up because you guys would not be able to read it.
On here.
The next measurement I'm gonna take is right where the ventral fin and the soft dorsal end. It's 2 nice reference points that you can come back to. Again, check my pattern. Looks like we're really close. And that's gonna be just shy of 3 inches. Those are heights.
Now you'll notice he's writing within his pattern because he's going to
Yes,
cut that
good
pattern
point.
out and discard the rest of the paper. That way you'll have all your measurements on your pattern itself.
Very, very good point. I'm going to take a measurement. Most of these measurements are going to run perpendicular to the center line of the fish. So if you imagine this being the center line, I'm going to take them straight up and down, not on an angle like this, not on an angle like this. I'm going to try and stay very perpendicular. And so I'm going to start right here where at the very front of the ventral fin, and I'm going to go straight up, which will come to about the midpoint of the soft dorsal. Okay.
Not on my fish.
4 7/8. I'm going to check it against my
Very
pattern.
cool. It says Pictionary in the back. Guess the
Right
fish.
there.
Which one? Mine?
There. to right
Goldfish is what I was going for.
there. I like that. And we are
Guppy.
just over 5. I'm going to say 5 1/8.
Which one was that?
That is
Before the vent?
behind the vent. And I'm also going to put a little reference line here so we know about where those were taken, and that was 5 1/8. Okay. Now I'm going to go right at the vent, which will be right about the front of the soft dorsal. Oops, better check it. Yep, right there.
I feel like one of those
5 1/2.
sign language people.
Tully's watching. You better say hi, Tully.
Hi, Tully.
Hi, Tully. Miss you.
And now we're going to come to the midsection of the body, so about halfway between the front of the spiny dorsal. I'm going to take a height quick reference there.
Beautiful.
6 1/8. And that was at the halfway point. What's Tull doing watching? He doesn't like doing fish.
No. Sam Gaylord says hi. Paul Potter, hello from South Alabama. Jimmy Lawrence says that's a nice shirt, Thomas. What about me, Jimmy? Come on now. It's the same one.
They didn't call me.
Oh, but Rob Pierce says nice shirts, Tommy.
Wow, they don't like my shirt? I like my shirt.
I do too.
Leading edge of the spiny dorsal. I'm gonna double check that here.
Royce Larson, for your commercial work on a 3D skin mount walleye, would you typically do a belly incision or a top?
I have a hard time with belly incisions. Tom, how do you feel about
I've had
that?
the best luck with the top.
Yeah,
The top.
I have too. And you can put that incision right along the dorsal fins, so it's a little easier to blend there for texture. But yeah, that's a tough one. Now I'm going to go right here at the front of the cleatrum bone. Another 6 1/4. And that's about it for height. So those are our height measurements. Now, we're going to come back, and in those same places, we're going to take a width measurement. So we'll go real quick through that. Stand him up. Now, notice if I put a lot of pressure on this fish, he's going to push out on the bottom. And we've got some distortion because this fish has been in the freezer. So we're going to compensate for that just slightly. But typically through the back portion, we're not going to have too much. It'll be kind of the start of the digestive and reproductive area that will start to push out just a little bit, but anatomically this tail area will stay, the caudal area will stay pretty true too. So we're going to take a width there, and those are going to be 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to circle these just to differentiate them. I'm going to take a width right at the end of the soft dorsal. Going to be 1 3/4. Kirsten is laughing, and I'm not sure why. It's making me nervous.
Oh, we got it. Gareth, you are watching. This is Matuska Taxidermy Supply Company, and we do a live feed every Thursday on taxidermy and how to do certain certain mounting of different tips and tricks of taxidermy products we carry. So if you know nothing about taxidermy, not interested, just stop watching, man. Just stop watching. Give it up.
Nobody else think this is really weird.
Just stop watching. You are on a taxidermy news feed right now.
That's funny.
Derek.
Everybody's learning.
Or Derek.
But for those of you tuning in, Matuska Taxidermy Supply Company, and we are live every Thursday at 4:30 Central Time. And yeah,
Derek, this is for you.
Yep. Northwest Iowa School of Taxidermy. Give us a call, 1-800-488-3256, and you can learn exactly what he's doing. We have advanced classes for those of you that already have the basics down. But tune in every Thursday. Follow us on Facebook. Whitetail, we do whitetail.
You said doo-doo.
He says he can't stop watching. It's addictively strange.
We've got 3 1/8. I'm almost through this. We're going to go real fast. This is where we get to the comic relief section. And then we're going to take it right over the cleatrum bones to 3 3/8.
What fish tan do you guys use?
Fish tan.
Yeah.
Tom, I use Tom's fish pickle for everything I think I've ever done. I've experimented with some other ones, but I've never seen anything that works any better.
It is pretty, what I've used forever. None of it's critical in the mix. It's water, like a 5-gallon bucket full of water. I put in, I would say, 3/4 of a cup of borax, 3/4 of a cup of salt. I put in a little bactericide to keep things smelling pretty. I put in Protex pre-soak, a couple ounces of Protex pre-soak, which is my bug proofer, along with the borax, and we get by pretty fine with that. We don't over soak them. We put them in there until the gill fibers turn pretty pale beige colored. I don't over soak them for days and days and days. A few hours at the most, and a lot of people use zinc sulfate.
Yep, zinc sulfate, just a simple soak of zinc sulfate. A lot of people will use some kind of a solvent, alcohol.
Yeah, to degrease a fish, you can use denatured alcohol, you can use different solvents, you can use Dawn.
Monica from Wyoming says she misses us. I figured you were on your way back.
Monica.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Monica.
Come back. Bring some of that red dirt with you.
Pull up in a great big truck back here.
With dirt.
With dirt. More dirt. A lot of dirt, Monica.
Monica was one of our very, very successful students from the last class.
And she has pretty dirt.
And she has pretty dirt. I'm taking circumference measurements along some of those key points at a 13.5. Front of the dorsal. And to keep all of these measurements straight, I'll put a circle around it with a little arrow just to, I do better with pictures, so I can tell myself that that's a circumference measurement.
Is Brett single?
So you're single.
Oh, let's talk about that.
let's not. Tull, thanks, Tull. Brett's very single.
We're working on it now.
Thanks, Tull.
Whoops, my little
16. And that is our greatest circumference.
Oh my god.
And we're going to take one of the cleat trombones. Told they made me quit wearing my Converse shoes for the demos.
Well,
16.
I didn't. I think you just got some extra likes on that and you quit yourself.
Made me self-conscious.
They match your
Okay. And that's it. That's what we're going to take for critical measurements for this largemouth bass. As I promised, that was it. As soon as I thought of that, I thought of a couple extra things. There are a couple width measurements that we'll want to take that will be very helpful to you. And one of those is the width of the pelvic fins. I'm going to take that, and I'll tell you why in just a second. That is going to be 1 inch. And that's going to be right here. And I'm also going to do the same thing where the meat quits in the head. Right there, I'll take that. 1 3/8.
I want to tell this Gareth guy, you can come back next week. We're going to be doing antler repair Thursday, 4:30 Central Time. Tune in and you can learn more about that. He said he's getting ready to go to bed and he's going to have some messed up dreams.
It's funny. That's funny.
We're at 207 viewers. Woohoo!
That pelvic area that I measured the width on, if you look at this bass, typically your warm water fish, and it'll carry through to a lot of your cold water fish, right in this brisket area, they're fairly flat, and that's because these muscle groups come together through here. So I like to have that width, and this fish will stay flat to the width of those fins, right there. So that's just a nice little reference point that we can do. And then up here, I took right where the meat quit in the head. That's a really nice measurement to have because we're going to taper that. You can see the body behind that is actually wider. And it doesn't hurt to take a quick measurement just as a reference right here where your gill cover meets in the head.
Once this fish is skinned, the reference, or the measurements are, you can't take any more measurements, so make sure
That's
that
right.
you get all that you can get. Even if you think it's overkill, take them now.
2.5. Okay, so those are the critical measurements. This is a pattern that we would use for carving a body. I think we'll probably do that in an upcoming seminar. I think today we were just trying to get through the pattern making portion.
You guys have 209 viewers, so if you wanted to continue it next week, you probably could. Otherwise, the antler repair won.
Yeah.
But
Should take a vote.
take a vote. Antler repair, fish continue
Or
next week.
continuing the fish carving.
Yeah, you guys choose.
Yeah,
The
we'll
only
give it-
reason we're a little, excuse me, Brent, apprehensive is we had several people say, we don't do fish in that,
I
you know,
had
they're not
3
interested
today,
in it.
yeah, we just
So
don't fish.
that's why we thought maybe we should break this up so we don't bore
Yeah, let us
people
know what
with-
you want to see.
So
Yeah.
let us know. More fish or antler repair?
And while you guys are voting, we'll kind of set this up just a little bit. We'll
Sure.
at least talk through the process. So we're going to carve this body. This is the commercial mannequin. It's made out of 1.5 pound density foam. 2?
No, that's probably 2.5.
2.5 pound density foam.
Now, why would you carve when it's so easy to buy one?
I would carve if I wanted to have a specialty pose. If I had a fish that I couldn't get measurements for, as we talked, the availability of those closed mouth forms is hard. It's hard to find those. You can find one here, but we don't have them for everything yet.
Yet.
And it just gives you some really nice opportunity to create custom action, custom poses. All of our fish are custom here with Matuska Taxidermy. Every one of those is custom made to the customer's request. So those are a couple of reasons. Gosh, the carved foam is a little bit lighter.
How's the price compare?
Yeah, and the time.
Price and time. The first one that you carve, time-wise, is going to be A, expensive, and B, take forever. But by the time you carve, 4 or 5? By the time our students get through a few of them, you can probably carve a body just like this. This is a walleye body that we carved for a customer fish. Pull the pattern off.
And how do you get the S-curve that you have in that?
That's a great question. I'll show you that in 1 second. This is what the carved body will look like based on this pattern.
That was from Keegan.
Ah,
Keegan
got it.
Fielder.
And this is an S curve, just like that Mandy just referenced. What we're going to do to get that curve, and I'll answer it because I'll forget, we're going to do a couple of things. One, we're going to transfer this onto a block of foam. There we go. We've got one set up that we did earlier today. So we're going to carve it out of this material. We're going to trace this on here and we're going to cut that out on the bandsaw. That would be the profile of it. And to get that S curve, we're going to put that curve in the dorsal pattern, in the top pattern, right here. And so we would do that. Some people, a lot of very, very talented taxidermists like to have a top pattern. And we would take this fish here and we would pose him in exactly the pose that we want. A little bit of head out, a little tail in.
Will you talk louder?
Yes, absolutely. Can you hear me now? Is that better? I'm going to pose this fish just like this, and I'm going to take a quick pattern. So we would make a tracing in that pose. This is going to be just a C shape because I don't have free hands. And then we would transfer some of those measurements onto this. Okay, like that. And then Tom is going to show you over here. We're going to transfer that pattern onto the body, onto the block of foam. So this is the top pattern here that I made a quick tracing of. Get rid of that fish. He's right here. And he pushed out here from being on the table. I would take that down And basically, we're determining the pose of the fish along this center line right here. And this is a very mild C shape. If I wanted to do an S curve, I would have made this my center line, like that. And then we would transfer all of those widths along that center line. We'll show you how to do that.
Sure if I cut this out for you?
Oh, absolutely, that'd be perfect.
I just, while Brett was explaining that, I just took the marker and I just traced his pattern onto here. A lot of times to get a really accurate profile, we'll just drag the back of a knife because it's not as wide of a mark as this. What we see happen a lot of times is people will use their grease pencil or some kind of marker, not get a very accurate tracing of the fish, and now they're already maybe 1/8 to 1/4 inch big on the bottom and the top. Then they'll use something, a fat marker like this, trace that onto here. When they cut it out, they want to be careful so they stay on the outside of their mark, and now they're almost 1/3 of an inch bigger top and bottom.
Yep, you really need to stay true to the actual size of your fish when you do this, and we'll refer back to him several times to make sure that we are, but that's probably one of the most common mistakes.
Now this is a little tight fit for the bandsaw.
You want to show? Yeah. Yeah, Tom's just going to cut it out.
You can use a knife, you can use a little sawzall, little handheld sawzall will do this also. If you have a bandsaw, it's pretty handy to have. Safety glasses.
Safety glasses. Safety glasses with headlights. We sell them. They're really cool.
Now, if you don't have a bandsaw and you're thinking of purchasing a bandsaw, it doesn't take a very big fish to get.
They want to know where you got that. Actually, they're looking at your saw. Where did they get one like that?
I bought that from a good friend of mine, Brett Wingfield, when he moved one time and couldn't take it with him. It's an old Craftsman bandsaw. It's excellent for all around the shop, except the throat distance is 6 inches, and it's a little short for big fish. If we get a fish any bigger than this, we're not allowed to do, I mean, it doesn't fit in there, so we have
What's
to.
the blade cut like?
The length of the blade's 90 inches. 91? 90 something.
Yep.
But it's that height. You really want that height to get bigger fish.
So that
when
would
we
be
get
a
a large
throat measurement.
when we get a large fish, we have to cut it out in some other manner. One of our favorite methods is something like this little Milwaukee handheld Sawzall. It's like an electric knife that does a great job for carving fish if you don't want to spend a lot of money on a bandsaw.
Absolutely. Gosh, I don't know where to stop.
That's a wide
You just keep
fish.
right on going.
Yeah.
You got 4 minutes. What do you got,
Well,
Bob?
we got,
Do,
we've got other
Mandy,
things.
do you got
We've
some stuff for
questions.
us?
We've got a giveaway. We've got some
We
other
do.
things to come
Are you,
back
is
to.
that where you want to start up? And
Could be a good stopping point.
Okay.
let's do it. So this will be take 2, and we'll kind of look at what you guys said, and we'll do part 2 for the fish in the next couple weeks. A couple things that we have going on. Again, we're a Matuska Taxidermy Supply Company. We're located in Northwest Iowa, and you can go online and call us or order any of your stuff, 1-800-488-3256 or www.matuskataxidermy.com.
Or Derek, come and visit.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to. Stay home. But we are doing live videos every Thursday at 4:30 Central Time, and they're informative. The guys are going over tips and tricks and different products that we like to use, new products coming up that you won't see in the catalog, all sorts of stuff to make your life easier, because that is our goal. Our goal. One of the things we are doing in the next 2 months is we are doing a sale, or kind of a thank you contest to all of our customers who share and like us on Facebook. And what it is we're giving away $500 worth of supplies, and we turned it into a little contest. And basically, all you really need to do is, it's whoever has the most Matuska shares, Matuska tags, comment on our stuff, you can give us reviews, and you get them. I kind of printed off some fun ones because it's fun to see who has these. Here, Brett, I'll let you read a couple.
Awesome.
And if you want to read some, they're kind of fun.
We do get a ton of feedback.
Big
and
print
it's
for me.
pretty fun to see.
For instance, for those of you that don't know, we put a piece of candy in every single box that goes out. Yes, if you didn't get a piece of candy, it's very likely that it was a busy day, or we're training someone and it got missed. It happens. We are truly sorry. For those of you that post, I think I got to give a shout out to Jeff Specht and Ryan Wolf for commenting on Facebook and letting us know that we forgot, but it was in a very nice complimentary way. So what I noticed was maybe we need to leave out candy all the time in their boxes, because they always post something nice about us. But we'll get you guys back, I promise. But Tim Perkins says, I'm like Pavlov's dog. My mouth starts to water when I see the speedy truck coming down the driveway. David Sunkin says, the candy is the second best thing after the great supplies. And Corey Frost says, I'm with Tim Perkins on this one. When I know a package is coming, it's like an extra special thanks from Matuskas.
That's cool. I've got one that looks candy related here. It's from Brent Wallenberg. Brent, another student. This is what shipping is supposed to look like. I hardly ever do orders like this. Normally, I always order at shows or in volume to save 12 to 15%. Then I pick up orders to avoid shipping, but I realized the bird bodies I had would not work for my current project. Three bodies, $7 shipping and handling. Matuska is over 600 miles from my house. Well done, Tom. And a picture we can get.
We try.
We do try.
You guys gotta help me with this. I'm not sure what it means, and I think it's age related. It says mad props to Matuska Taxidermy Supply. Is that good? Okay, we got mad props, whatever that is. My back-ordered reflective bear eyes came in along with my deer eyes, but they took it a step farther, included some M&Ms. Matuska, y'all the real MVP.
Yeah, y'all the real MVP. Who is it?
That's a little
Lauren
southern.
White.
Lauren White. I got a Holly.
Thank you, Lauren.
Holly Jissa. Wonderful people, great products, and excellent shipping.
We know Holly.
Yes, we do. And I have to apologize. Brent Wallenberg, I was thinking of Brent Weisenberger from North Dakota.
That's what I was thinking of too.
Yep. Kind of confused. I've got one from Felicia Hill. My husband is just starting out doing taxidermy, and we've had so many questions, and every time I've called, the ladies answering have been so helpful. If they don't know the answer, I've been transferred to Tom, who was so helpful. They've definitely earned our business. It's so nice to know you're buying from a company that is acting willingly to help you. I
got Jim Liska. He says, that time my wife grabbed the Matuska catalog and ordered most of the stuff I had marked. Merry Christmas. I mean, here's all the stuff he ordered. He's got a lot of form roughers and files and rasps and a rug stretcher and a comb, thimbles, candy.
Father's Day and Mother's Day is coming up. That'd be a good way to get what you want for that. Joe Martin, service is fast, the girls are nice, and I love the candy bars.
Very nice.
Cole Kirkshank, checking in my order from Matuska Taxidermy Supply, getting ready to work on some feathers in the shop. Not only have they listened to my request of replacing Almond Joys with any other candy bars on the planet, they also sent me a mug full of chocolates, debating on giving to my wife full or empty. Either way, my Valentine's Day is taken care of. In all seriousness, I love doing business with family-run businesses owned by great people like Tom and Vicky. Nice order, Cole. He's got a whole lot of Wildlife Illusions bird bodies, some polycasts, bird heads. Thanks, Cole.
Those don't fit in largemouth bass or crappies.
Grayson Roberts, fantastic products, always trying to go beyond to come up with the best of the best for new ideas. Just a lot of love there.
Yeah,
good
We
stuff.
love it. Thanks you guys. We love the positive feedback and everything. So we are giving back for that for $500. It doesn't take much. Go and share this video. Go share other of the videos, and you would probably be at the top of the leaderboard if you went and just shared everything on our page. But Brad Grabber is in the lead.
Really?
Brad Grabber. Aaron Wolf, Brian Billings, Christopher Candace, Dakota Gold, Jimmy Lawrence, David Johnson, Domer, sorry if I'm butchering names, Marjois, Ryan Wolf, Jason Gray, Carrie Willingby, Linda Shrew, Stan Williams, Mark Riff, the list goes on and on. So thanks so much, everybody, and keep it up, and we just love doing these for you and talking to you. We're going to do a giveaway. Did you pick a giveaway? What about, so reference, you talked about reference, and we have reference CDs. We have those reference CDs. Let's give away a smallmouth bass reference CD, a tape measure, and maybe a
Pencil?
yeah, pencil. So all three of those things together. Will that work?
And the CD has a lot of pictures.
Yeah, a lot. Usually our reference CDs have anywhere from 50 to 180, and we have probably, we have birds, we have African, North American.
Oh, we got alligators,
fish.
crocodiles, snakes, kudu, gemsbuck, white-tailed deer, bear.
So our question, what we're going to have you do is comment, and the first one to comment the answer will get this free giveaway this week. And the question is, how many photos are on our underwater largemouth bass reference CD? How many photos are on our underwater largemouth bass reference CD?
And if you guess it right, you get
it.
a CD,
Tape
underwater
measure,
CD,
a
tape
CD,
measure,
and a
grease pencil.
grease pencil. And while you guys are guessing that, where do my catalogs go?
I hit them.
That's like the focal point of our live videos. Can I have a school too?
Get live.
While you guys are all guessing, I am going to let you look at our catalogs. We have two catalogs here. The Matuska Taxidermy Supply Company catalog, and then we also have Northwest Iowa School of Taxidermy. You can call us 1-800-488-3256 or order online at 1-800 or at www.matuskataxidermy.com. And let us know if we can help you in any way. The guys are here for answering questions. We'll be back next Thursday, 4:30 Central Time. If you are interested in taxidermy, give us a call. We will walk you through our course, what we offer. We also offer advanced courses if you want to take your skills to the next competitive level. Give us a call. So that's kind of what we have today, and we have a winner.
We have a winner.
Who's the winner?
Winner.
And the winner is Andy Jacobs.
Congratulations,
Andy, from
We
Wisconsin.
will get that out for you tomorrow. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and
Thank you.
Like
share. Bubbles.